Hey guys, and welcome back to Trekyards. I'm Captain Foley.
I'm Connor Cockings, and we have with us...
Me, hi, John Eaves here in sunny Utah.
And today we're doing something kind of new here. We're going to be talking to Mr. John Eaves about some design concept sketches. Now, this new kind of discussion piece that we're doing with designers will really highlight some of the unseen design concepts that they've done that are simply fantastic. And hopefully
Or radical. They could be so amazingly what? It's worth talking about.
Yes. So hopefully this new show is something you guys enjoy and get to see some things you might not have seen before. So today's episode...
They're all great fun.
That's what we like to hear.
And today's episode is going to focus on a ship we've heard a lot about because it's basically the main test in Starfleet for a captain. We're going to look at the Kobayashi Maru. So, John, tell us a little bit about the Kobayashi Maru.
Oh, this was actually very fun, because it was almost the first thing I started working on the first JJ Star Trek. And Scott Chambliss came in and he goes, "Do you know what the Kobayashi Maru is?" Maru, and I go, "Yeah, it's in the Wrath of Khan. It's kind of a test ship." And he goes, "Well, what's it look like?" And I go, "I don't think anyone's ever rendered a Kobayashi Maru." And he goes, "All right, well, we'll get to work and make something up." And so I came up with 2 sketches on it.
Now, I got to jump in real quick first. There was a book done called the Kobayashi Maru that had a picture of a ship on the cover earlier.
Yes, and that actually comes up in this little tale.
Oh, well.
Here to say. So we had a researcher on board on the show, and her job was to basically the designer or the art director would go, "Hey, we got such and such artist or illustrator working on this. Can you get research for them?" And so she came in as I was drawing these sketches with this little book called Kobayashi Maru, and it had a drawing, kind of a blueprint drawing of a rendering that they made for the book. And I'd already got the first sketch down, and I was looking at it going, "That's really pretty cool." And I'd gotten to a point where in the drawings I was doing that Scott liked what we had going. And so very minimally, I tried to incorporate a little bit of that artwork from the novel into there. And being a huge fan of the Grissom, I tried to do like a kind of a cargo ship variation with the Grissom kind of saucer body tie-in as the lead element. And so you got like kind of a little bridge of nacelles that come off the top. And this was actually the JJ show was actually where we started doing the space shuttles the shuttlecraft with the elevated nacelles on the top as opposed to merged on the bottom of the ship. And we did a whole kind of architectural pass on that. So Kobayashi Maru was kind of the first idea where we had the nacelles high, and it followed forth on the shuttlecraft. But I thought it'd be kind of cool to have like this cargo element, but not as part of the ship or as a tug, but basically based out of arms where you had these like struts that would come out like the nacelles, but they would hold the cargo containers. And so the first version is a very simple version. It's basically kind of an X-wing variation format of the ship. And then there was a second one where I did the nacelles where they came out and they dropped down kind of like the older shuttlecraft, and the cargo containers went along the whole of the ship under the saucer. Oh, look, you're pulling up some cool stuff. And I don't recall if that either of these made it to the final film or something that Alex Yeager had done, if they ever showed it. I remember they did his Klingon ship on the screen, but I don't know if any of these...
From what I recall, there's an explosion. There's a ship that's exploding before the ships attack the things. So there is something, but I mean, it's so far away. I mean, we don't even get a clear look at the Klingon ship, which we're excited to look at.
I'd have to go back and ask Alec about it, but I remember both these sketches they took them, and that was the last I ever saw them.
So the sketches say at the bottom, 7 of 07. So that's quite a long time before the film was actually made. Now, you were brought on, as is well known, as sort of the only Prime Trek designer, which obviously we loved because it means we had at least a part of Prime Trek being designed there. But the standing order for those JJ films was to not keep that feel. So this early on in a 7 of 07, looking at both these versions, they feel very, very Prime. Was this before that knowledge came down, or were you just trying to create the basic shapes and then after the fact modify them to be more of the JJ style? What was the sort of thought process when these were being designed?
Well, like you were saying, the JJ version, there was a strict rule from Paramount that no previous Star Trek employees were to be brought onto this show. Reason so, they wanted to have a whole new look without being kind of led or inspired by other people. And I knew the designer from Mission Impossible days, and he called. He goes, "I can't bring you on because of this rule." And I don't know, 6 months went by, and he goes, "I had to let a few illustrators go." And he goes, "If I bring you on as a test, you promise not to be influential with what you've done before." And I go, "Whatever you want." So it worked out really well. But at that point, they had already got Ryan Church and James Klein on, and they've set a whole kind of design standard of what the ships were going to look like. So this basically followed their path of what they had come up with the Enterprise and the Romulan ships and stuff. So I basically used their kind of starting point as where I was going to go with my stuff. And
which is interesting then, because when I see these, I see completely Prime looking. I mean, the way the nacelles are, they're very straight, very TOS. Obviously, this would be an older ship anyway.
Yeah, that was actually fine. That was a discussion Scott Chambliss and I had. That I go, "Do you want me to follow the Ryan nacelles where you have the more curvature stuff, or something old-fashioned?" He goes, "Oh, let's go with the older style." So it worked out really well to have the longer, straighter nacelle.
I want to throw in there as well. I mean, looking at this, I mean, obviously there's two versions, but looking at the version we see, on the front, I get a very sort of NX vibe out of that saucer with the amount of sort of bumps and things. I mean, how close were you picturing this to the NX compared to the TOS? Obviously, I guess Kelvin era. Where did you see it in the timeline?
At that point, we didn't know about the alternate universe and the alternate timeline as far as the art department went. We just knew we were doing a Star Trek in this time frame, and so being that the TOS was still, we were somewhere at the earlier Kirk days, so that the NX-01 style, that we had just kind of established, I thought, I can still carry that a little bit over because we're a little bit pre-original series as far as the time was going. That'd be nice to lend a little bit of that architecture where it's like the tail end of it, where so you have a little bit of the cut in the saucer, a little bit of a notch for the deflector and stuff. So just trying to tie in what NX-01 had done into the JJ world. So I guess I was kind of influenced, but not overly consciously, but just trying to tie all those worlds together.
Well, it's very neat. I love the different parts to it. I think they work beautifully well. I wish we'd seen them both.
And a lot of CG modelers have built. I've seen versions of both of these, and beautiful work by everybody. So
yeah, I was just going to say I've got quite a few images of ships that have been created based on that design, and I think it's a fantastic design. That first one you have there, that's labeled version 1, is just
the undercarriage or the X-wing version. Are you talking about? The X-wing one was the one I've seen the most of. The undercarriage, I've only seen one modeler tackle it.
Yeah, that version 1 I think is fantastic. That's an amazing piece of art.
It was fun. I wanted to carry it a little bit further.
I love that ship.
As far as the JJ show went, I never went any further than what you see right there as a blue line. And it was really under the gun to get the things going. So I'd get it to that point. They go, okay, next assignment.
Yeah, how long did it take you to get that to that?
Both of these were done in the same day, so I did a couple real quick sketches. Scott goes, "I like this, and that," and so I just did these two, and we had them at the end of the day.
John, stop being so talented. Seriously, these are
for the
same day.
You can go really, really fast, but when it turns into painting or a model, then all the time takes place. But sketches are pretty quick.
This would take me like a year. Okay, not that long, but well, I mean. Okay, so version 1, I mean, let's go back to where it says version 1, the underslung. It's a very, very busy ship. That kind of says more cargo to me, I think, because it breaks line of sight, which I guess you could argue that completely takes it out of the water. But the fact that the cargo's inside the warp bubble, very sort of internal, it feels like it's much more designed with that in mind, whereas the other version is more... We have a ship, now we're going to attach cargo pods to, if that makes sense. That's just
it's funny because the one with the underslung cargo carriers you see on the back of it, it's got like a major, it looks like a shuttle port, but it's actually a cargo loading area. So those cargo pods basically would stay attached to the ship and then just be loaded and unloaded. While the other version was basically you detach and replace. And so that was the variations on the two ships. That one kept its pods and the other one would just kind of trade them out.
What was then what was the understanding of what these ships were? I mean, the Kobayashi Maru, from what I remember from canon, it was just a civilian, fake ship that was lost on the neutral zone. I mean, did you see this as being a Starfleet, a Federation cargo vessel? The head of tech, a really old tech, something, akin to the ships that Travis Mayweather's family was on, sort of the iteration of that. Yeah. I mean, how did you see it fit into the timeline? Just based on the brief, I mean, where did you see it? Because I never really thought about it much.
Well, they actually had me in a separate building from the rest of the art department. So when no one was around, I'd call and ask Mike Akuta questions. And so I called him and asked him all kinds of questions about it. And we just basically came up with this little kind of cargo Starfleet ship, and that was where it went.
Yeah, see, I always pictured, like Samuel said, a civilian transport ship that was a lot older, kind of a rust bucket. Might have wandered into the neutral zone because it was faulty navigation system or something.
That's what it did.
We just kind of gave it a secondary purpose that it hauled stuff at the same time. So
a neutronic fuel carrier or something it was called.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And then look at the novel art. They had kind of the same idea with the giant pods underneath.
Yeah, they had kind of a triangle configuration, almost like a Viper, from what I remember on the cover of the book. So,
right.
Yeah. Well, what I like about the idea of it being an old ship, like you said, Stuart, it could easily be an NX-01 era ship, and because it's that old, it's been sold to civilian organisations, and therefore you've got the newer nacelles, but that's just a simple refit. But that's why it keeps it slightly more NX styling, and it is that old, which I love. It's history to a ship, and it's subtle. I mean, you did it sort of without realising fully, and it's so subtle, but it works so well, I think. I mean, not to try and compliment you too much, John, but they're both so good.
Well, this is actually, we did a lot of stuff on there. Mostly I went to shuttles after this, but these two were actually my favorite. They were the quickest things I did, but they were my favorite of the whole kind of assignment list. And I was like, wow, because you grew up with Kobayashi Maru, and get the opportunity to kind of create one was just great fun.
So again, just so many little things popped to mind, but in version 1, I'm assuming so you see the bridge, you see the part coming off the I guess the bridge module. Is that a shuttle bay? Was that meant to be sort of the main shuttle bay? It looks like
exactly,
door there.
Exactly.
That's cool. And the underslung part between the pods, that would just be cargo storage or engineering.
What's the secondary hull?
Yeah, more cargo. I kind of designed where the living quarters was in the saucer, and everything else, cargo or shuttle or whatever else it needed to do. So they explained that it's not a big crew. So I thought, I'm not going to have them spread all out. I'll just keep them on the saucer.
So do you think then this is closer to, say, a Franklin, from Star Trek Beyond, where maybe it's 12 crew, but all the space is there for cargo, so a lot of that internal volume is just cargo, and you've got minimum people.
Yeah, and with it, you don't really need a big crew, because cargo doesn't require anything unless it's living. But
well, that brings in a question for me for size, like length of the vessel. How big does it have to be to really attach different cargo pods? Like I don't know if you know what the TOS Ptolemy class tug looks like from Franz Joseph, but it's not very big. I don't think it's the same size as a Constitution class saucer. So how big did you see this one?
I actually drew this probably in the range of about 500-600 feet in length, with everything you see there. But I did a real rough sketch where it was more like a tugboat, kind of like what we did with the Fortunate, where you have little engine in the front and longer cargo in the back. With the space travel, you don't need weight and mass don't really matter as much as it would in a gravitational kind of world. So I figured you could transpose these little compact versions of storage units into any size you wanted to.
And just to give some context, because we tend to work in meters, just because that's how all the measurements work. Just average out 550 feet is in fact 167 meters. The NX-01 is 225, so it's quite substantially smaller. So that's definitely pretty compact.
Basically it's just a bridge and engines with an area to attach things. So it didn't much more
Well, what I really see from it is you've got that top bridge dome is the bridge. You've got that shuttle bay for moving in and out of the ship, and then just the saucer is 20 rooms, and that's it. It could even be a deck, just a deck wide. It's very, very minimal.
The smaller something is, the more vulnerable it looks, and that's why I figured I'll make it a little bit on the smaller scale, and it just would kind of add to the story. Hey, they're picking on that little ship over there. We need the Enterprise to save it. So.
This version 1 design, I mean, you could turn this into a battleship, size it up a bit, and just I love this design. This is. I'm not just kissing your ass, John, because you know that I hate the retro bird of prey. But this one, I absolutely love.
One thing that's interesting about this is that you designed the NX-01 era cargo transport. Very small primary area, and then all those pods going back. And in the NX-01 era, obviously, warp is a geometric increase. So warp 1, warp 2 is so much faster. Warp 5 was another huge jump. So those cargo transports with warp 3, they took years sometimes to do transport, and so to be a certain size to have just enough crew and a family to make the journey that could be years worthwhile. Suddenly you skip to TOS, or even in between your warp 6, 5, you can have a smaller ship, because if you just go into Vulcan, if it takes you 2 weeks, you have 12 people, why not? I mean, you hang out for 2 weeks, it's fine. Whereas if you're doing a year, you need something like 40, 50, 60, 70 people just to not go insane.
Well, being that it's the JJ world, all these ships run on beer, so if people volunteered and flocked to work on these ships.
And they can get halfway
We'll be
across
off
the
in the
galaxy.
morning, and we'll go to the engine room in the afternoon and spend the rest of the
They
day.
get halfway across the galaxy in like a matter of days anyway. So.
Yeah, they don't remember anything. Shaving.
One thing that kind of came up when we did the Ptolemy mission briefing, you can attach multiple cargo containers and make the train a lot longer, as it were. But how does that affect the warp bubble, do you think? Like, do you think the longer the train, the slower the speed would be, because you can't extend the warp bubble that far? Or how do you see the warp geometry working on a cargo
That was
ship?
another question I was going to ask Mike about, and we never had to breach it. Because I thought, what if you had like a booster or some type of pod in the middle that would carry the bubble on an extension or something?
Warp sustainer.
Or like a caboose version that would complete the back of the bubble.
Great.
Well, if we then swap to version 2, because there is differences. This one doesn't have the aft shuttle bay. It has these big chunks of hull. Are they also sort of cargo modules, or are they both shuttle bays maybe?
The shuttle bay was actually in the center. That was just kind of a heavy duty elongated impulse engine scenario is what that was. And so at that time I was trying to do all the shuttle bays dead center of the saucer when we weren't allowed to use a fuselage scenario. That was like the only place it worked. And so being with the TNG and all that stuff, it works. And even though it wasn't a TOS invention, it lent itself well. And then with NX-01 being able to put the shuttle bay on the back, it just was something that tied in really well.
I don't know if you've already mentioned it, but what was the reaction when you gave these sketches to your department leader? Like, what was their reaction?
Well, it was funny because he's so immersed in the CG world that he goes, "Oh, pencil." That's why he hired me for pencils and forgot why. And he goes, "It's great that we get these ideas out so fast." That's why he didn't want anything further than that. Because he goes, "We'll just give it to CG guys or visual effects, and they'll run with it from there." And that's where that fun collaboration I told you about before takes place, where you're the first step in a whole sea of talent that comes together to make these things into one unit. So always fun.
And did he like it? Did he say, "Wow, John, these are amazing"?
Like Cookie's version, he couldn't choose, and that's why he took them both. And he goes, "I like them both for different reasons. We'll figure it out in the end." And
what did you see when you saw the film and you were there sitting down? You're like, "Oh, it's the Kobayashi Maru scene."
You know what?
Where is she?
3 times, and every time I forget to look for it because when the Art of book came out, I'm going, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even see Alex's Klingon ship." It's such a quick playback scene. I was looking at everything else, and
yeah, me too.
I think I was still mesmerized by the clear meat locker curtains on the shuttle. I think I was still that one out.
We do have a screen cap of the Kobayashi Maru and stuff that we can show.
Yeah, there it is, and that's from the movie, eh?
Yep.
Yeah, there is. Nice.
That's a different design again, though.
It did kind of go the X-wing route, sort of. But it looks like they got Kelvin style nacelles on it and stuff.
Yes. I quite like this version.
That's
It is
beautiful.
very similar to what you did. But
Yeah, that's beautiful. I like that.
this is why we need to get in contact with the guys who did, ILM to say, can we look at this 3D model more angles, please? Because that's what we do here. I want to dissect it. That's what we do.
Yeah, that's great. Those are beautiful.
So what I find the most ironic thing about all this is that it took J.J. Abrams' 2009 Star Trek movie for us to actually see a Kobayashi Maru, which we've heard about since Star Trek 2. I mean, you see it on the novel, but I just think it's very cool that they approached you to design one. So
It was funny. I didn't see JJ that much on the first movie, but on the second one, it was daily. And I think because we were all we had moved from Paramount to Sony, and we were all there together. And he was all over the place on the first movie. So it was you really didn't get to. They'd have his big gigantic meetings, and they'd go over stuff, and he'd have to run out and do a million other things because he was trying to figure out how to do that story arc with all the rules of what you can, which was mostly what you can't do. And when he brought Nimoy in, that really helped out immensely. But we rarely saw him. He was just. It's amazing he still has his hair after that first movie. But,
he did a Shatner. It's all a wig.
Yeah.
but very, very fun guy. I have the best time working with him. Great.
We'd love to interview him at some point. I think there's more to the story than we all know.
Yeah. So let's just talk about our final thoughts on these few designs we see here. I gotta say, the version 1 is my absolute favorite. I would love to see this realized as a ship. It looks like a perfect TOS addition to the fleet with the way you got it designed there. The X-Wing one I'm not so big on, personally. That's one of those gray areas for me. It's all right, and I think it could, maybe with different module attachments and maybe trailing behind it a bit, may look a little bit better. But honestly, version 1 is where it's at for me, John. I think that's spot on. Version 2, sorry.
Honesty is important on Trekyards. We'll let John have the final say. So I'll say, I like both very much. Version 1 is more integrated. It feels more naturally fitting. But I think version 2, just the ship alone, take out the pods, would be a really cool ship to see. Just a simplified iteration in between the steps. It has a slight NX vibe, and then you put the cargo pods on, and it makes theoretical sense perfectly. So I think both are excellent, and as Lincoln Stewart said, both need to be in canon, both in Discovery, please, John.
And version 2 has line of sight. Version 2 has line of sight, which is very important. Version 1 doesn't, John.
Well, we should call Ben at Eagle Moss and have him just make them so we can have them.
I agree.
I'll get on the Twitter. And then, John, your closing thoughts about these designs of the Kobayashi Maru and any last anecdote you have.
I have to say I completely agree with Stewart. The first version was my favorite. The X-Wing was my secondary. I like that clunkiness. I like the cargo feel of it, and I like the compactness of it. The other one almost, like you said, it goes more into a starship as opposed to a cargo ship with the expanse of the nacelles and stuff. So there you go.
Great minds think alike, apparently.
And fools seldom differ, as they say. Anyway, guys, I think that's it for our first designing with I don't know what we're going to call it. Discussing design with John Eaves. I don't know.
Well,
but anyway,
no, because the title of the video.
Sure. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please like the video, subscribe as always. Don't forget the little bell notification so you get notified every time you release a new video, and share it around to anybody that you think would enjoy it.
Or if you want to support this show and help more shows, please go to trekyards.com, click that donate button, or Patreon, our monthly service, to keep the lights on and more amazing content with more amazing people like John Eaves coming to you every single week. So thanks, John, again.
There you go. And it's great because once you become a follower, they send everything to you, and you don't have to go searching and miss anything. It's fantastic.
Exactly. Listen to John. He knows what he's talking about, guys.
Otherwise,
thank you, John, for joining us yet again.
You wake up and there's something new, so I'm happy.
All right, well, thank you, John, for joining us yet again, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.
All right.
Until next time, I'm Captain Foley.
I'm Connor Coggins.
And the old bald fat guy says, see you later.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.